a rep is not a real thing, especially in the context of research. When you're doing a rep of bicep curl, even though from an external perspective, if you do the rep and I do the rep might look the same. From an internal perspective, that rep is not the same. You know, a rep just means you're from three-dimensional space, you're moving from here to here. But the intention that you're putting into that rep, the amount of concentration that you're putting into that
Hmm.
bicep, the difference between saying, I am squeezing my bicep or I'm using this exercise as a tool to change my internal environment is something that can't be captured in research. Because in
Yeah.
research, it's just like, how many reps did you do? But the rep is such a elaborate concept and can mean so many different things in so many different bodies. And as we were saying
Hmm.
before, a rep in your body is not going to be the same as a rep in my body. And you have to consider that, right? A rep is defined externally, but to do that rep, you're utilizing a nervous system which has been forged over millions and millions of years, and it's infinitely complex. The most complex thing that human beings have ever discovered is that the human brain and the central nervous system. It's the only thing that's ever named itself, to be honest with you. You know what I'm saying? It's
Hmm.
and the idea that if you get from point A to point B externally, that somehow that evens the playing field and that everyone gets there in the exact same way goes against millions of years of evolution. It also goes against the way that we understand movement. As you know,
Hmm.
the dynamic systems theory pretty much states that every rep you do is going to externally may look the same, but internally is there's an infinite number of ways that you can achieve that rep. And the nervous system itself and the ability to gauge intensity levels when you are training means that there's an infinite number of ways to accomplish that rep for an infinite number of reasons, which will lead to an infinite number of adaptive inputs. And yeah, there, like again, there is something to learning or practicing the body um,
Hmm.
that you can't get from structuring reps and sets and named exercises that you can get from something like animal flow, which is, you know, use your body. Like you get to learn how it moves and how it doesn't move. You get to learn this concept of greater intensity, lesser intensity, moving into an area that's unfamiliar to you so you feel the novelty so that your motor system and your nervous system learns those movements or at least learns that it
Hmm.
doesn't have what it takes to get into those positions.
Exactly. And whenever you were talking about the rep being from point A to point B, that reminds me a lot of whenever you're watching someone who is a novice flowist,
Hmm.
and maybe they're doing a flow that is, let's say, 10 movements long. And every time they perform a movement, the intention really is just about getting from point A to point B, and then that movement is done. And then they go to the next movement, point A to point B, that movement is done. And there is much less of the quote unquote flow that's happening there as it's the execution of singular motions or movements.
Hmm.
When you watch someone that has more experience, now they've probably started to understand some of these more complex applications, which are, some examples are tempo control and something we call constant and various motion, where even in the same movement, even though I know it starts at point A and it starts at point B, there are so many opportunities in between to speed up, to slow down, to be explosive, to have this sensation of release.
Hmm.
And it's a journey from point A to point B. And then once we even get to point B, the constant and various motion part is we go past point B and it becomes the next movement that becomes the next movement. So you have so many opportunities to experience motion in different ways versus just point A to point B.